What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, are my fellow hosts. I've got Robert DeFelice.
Hey.
And Callum Wiggins.
He's hardcore.
He's EV 2.0.
Just him. He's only
He
2.0.
He is.
Yeah, Barry, what the running
God,
gag
Barry,
now.
you put on so much weight, Barry.
The hardcore elephant in the room. Yeah, what's up, Barry? What's up, everybody listening? Drop your comments below, as always. Tell us what your thoughts are for all the things we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, if you are on the audio only platforms like iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play, and Google Podcast, and Spotify, and Podbean, and Anchor, and iHeartRadio, some of the ones that aren't really updated all that much, but TuneIn is updated now. So there you go. TuneIn's another way for you to listen to us. And, you can't do anything on there, but hop over to YouTube. YouTube is the best thing for us. So hit that subscribe button, ring that little bell for no notifications, and hit that like button on the video as well. Drop those comments below, because what we're talking about today is a recap of the 2019 Champsgiving tournament. And you're probably thinking to yourself, that was the Champsgiving tournament. That's a tournament. The end. All right, see you later, everybody.
Weird episode.
So, throughout the year, we do a couple little tournaments. It's not quarterly because it's just hard to do quarterly, and I don't have 4 ideas. To peel back the behind the scenes about that. But every year we do the Sexiest Superstars tournament around the summer, and I had started doing the Smark Madness tournament around March, and I was trying to think of something for the fall. And eventually, Callum was the one that suggested Champsgiving, and we went ahead with that. Last year, we did the best world champion up until that point. So that included the WWE champions, the Universal champions, and the World Heavyweight champions. And we had some issues with that, but I figured I would go ahead and try it again this year. And this year was the best hardcore champion of all time. Part of the reason why was because there was a finite amount of champions. We weren't still continuing to go onward, like with the United States title, the Intercontinental title, etc. And they introduced the 24/7 title, which is effectively the hardcore championship without the hardcore element right now. So I figured that would be an interesting one to go back in time and talk about, And there's been a lot of stuff that you guys have been covering on 2001 The Wrestling Odyssey. So that gives a little bit more context to some of that stuff too, if everybody's listening to that, which you should be listening to, because these guys do a great job on that each and every month. And that's going to be wrapping up soon. So there's only one more edition left. But the best hardcore champion, before we get into all the whole bracket breakdown and who won the tournament and all the other kind of things like that, just being asked who's the best hardcore champion of all time, would you have an answer? Would you have I would clearly go with this person?
Yeah, Crash Holly. I think it's pretty obvious that it's Crash Holly.
That's who I would have leaned towards, yeah.
He was the person that made the Hardcore Championship fun and actually gave it some sort of... I mean, obviously, it's the writers and the people that created behind it, but he was the character that instigated the 24/7 rule, which is the thing the Hardcore Championship is most fondly remembered for. Other than that, it would have just been, just a number bell that a load of jobbers would fight over. Now it was a title that a load of jobbers fought over, but they could win it at any point in time, and that made it interesting.
I do like what Crash Holly gave to the championship, but I like that Rob Van Dam kind of sent it away with not only, a good reason for having the belt. He was an ECW guy, but he also sent it away with some damn good matches. So RVD is my favorite hardcore champion.
I could see the case for people saying that Raven should be, because he's won the title 100 times. I could see quite a bit of other people. Hardcore Holly, I think that there's a little bit of an argument. But to be perfectly honest, the hardcore title has had more time when I wasn't watching than when I was. So a lot of the people that were in this tournament, I didn't even bother voting for the matches, because I was like, you know what? I can't really judge Mike Awesome, because I don't remember anything that he had done because I wasn't watching at the time. So am I going to vote him over Sean Stasiak for no particular reason, or just, not bother putting my vote in there? And I did that towards quite a bit here. I actually only voted on a couple different matches on this tournament. This is the only tournament that I've ever done on the website that I've mostly abstained from voting on. So, like, Tommy Dreamer versus Kane, I was like, all right, well, either one of them makes sense to me from my perspective. Or Stevie Richards versus Taz, or Big Boss Man versus Maven. Like, they all kind of had a similar confusion to me about it. So I didn't really have a horse in this race, I guess. Crash Holly probably would have been the person that I would have voted for more times often than not, just because of the 24/7 title. But, to each their own. I don't think that there's some kind of like crazy, like, whoa, what the hell? Why are you guys going with Finn Balor as the best Universal Champion of all time? Where it would have been like, Jesus, that can't possibly be right, I do want to break down the tournament, though. And I think we might as well go round by round and kind of build towards the end here. But the very first thing I wanted to put out there on this tournament this year was referencing the fact that last year's tournament was kind of weird. Now, last year, we had seen people voting based off of just who they liked as opposed to who the best champion was. And like I just said a second ago, Finn Balor getting votes as being a better world champion than some other people. And it was like, well, he was a world champion for one day. He had gotten injured and he dropped the title. How can that possibly be that he's a better world champion than, like, I don't know, Sid, where it's like, okay, well, at least he had a title reign, more than one of them. That's got to be better, So I put it out there for this time. Do people understand that this is supposed to be based off of their title reigns for this particular belt? Not the type of thing where it's like, well, I like Chris Jericho as world champion, and he did the list thing, and that's really good, so he's the best hardcore champion of all time. Like, that's not how this is supposed to go. And oddly enough, 21.8% of the people said, nah, I'm still going to vote otherwise. And I'm like, all right, well, then why even bother doing the tournament? At that point, round one, I'm like, that's going to throw everything off. And in round two, I asked a follow-up to that of just, what the hell, basically. And only 2 people had the courage to actually respond with that, because it was an optional thing. You didn't have to click on that. One person just said, because. Which is like, great. And then somebody else said that it should be about the overall hardcore supremacy, which I can kind of understand the point of view with that. But how do you guys feel about that whole argument? Should these Champsgiving tournaments be not based off of the title reign? Because if that's the case, then what the hell are they about?
I don't know, fundamentally, they should be about just that person's reign as the champion the championship that we specify. But I'm also not naive enough to believe that will actually be the reason why people would vote for it. And basically, with no matter how many people vote or anything along those lines, they're always going to be skewed by someone saying, I just like this guy more than this guy, or I like X person better. I think that they were so much more fun in 2010 when the Hardcore Championship was already dead for about 8 years. They're still... what they did in that year was really good. It's like, well, yeah, the Hardcore Championship was dead by that point, and they have no involvement in that whatsoever. So,
yeah, I think the fundamental flaw here, Tony, is that you're expecting people to, one, cooperate with rules, and you're expecting democracy to work.
What's that Simpsons line about democracy doesn't work? Drawing a blank on it right now. If you know, drop a comment below. It's in Revelations, people. It's not the same line, but still. Yeah, that was very disheartening to start off with for me, I have to admit. It sounds kind of depressing to be like, oh, let's run down the tournament, and the very first thing is just sort of like, oh, well, what the hell?
You're running down the tournament.
Yeah, like, but that's kind of how I was looking at this, and to be perfectly honest, I mean, that kind of makes me go, I don't know if there's a Champsgiving 3 or something, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, because I do want to still break down how things played out. So, we had Raven beat Chris Jericho, and at any point, if you feel like chiming in about anything in particular, go ahead and stop me. Raven beats Chris Jericho. Rob Van Dam beats Rhino. Mankind overwhelmingly beats Spike Dudley.
Can't imagine why.
Oh, I was going to go back to just the previous one. I was a little disappointed that Rob Van Dam and Rhino were against each other in the first round.
Oh yeah,
Just
for
because
the placement of that, by the way, for anybody who was curious, that we had a qualifying round. I didn't bother breaking down that. The qualifying round, I needed to narrow it down to 32 because there was more than 32 champions. So I took the people who had the absolute least amount of time and threw them out. But there were multiple people that had one title reign that lasted less than a day. So all those were like, all right, these are the ones that need to be, I think it was like about like 8 choices to fill in the final 2 or so. So that's how you got these 32, because we are missing some people on this list that, didn't necessarily get a chance to be a part of the tournament. But the placement of them then was, the seeding, I should say, was based off of how many times they won the title and how many days they held the championship in total. So some of those instances, like Rob Van Dam versus Rhino, if maybe one of them would have held it an extra day or had like one less title reign or one more title reign or something like that, might have played out a little bit differently. Why would you have where would you have put RVD and Rhino? Maybe like semifinals?
Rhino would have definitely been at least quarterfinals for me, just because as you talked about, we've gone back to 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, and I think Rhino's had some of the best matches that with the hardcore title on the line that I've seen. Because you don't really associate the hardcore championship with great matches more than just like segments and gimmicks. Whereas Rhino actually put some decent matches with people like Raven and even with like people with the Big Show during his very hefty days. He actually put some good stuff together. So I would have liked to have seen him a bit deeper in the tournament, but I guess everyone has to get eliminated at some point anyway if they're not going to win.
Yeah, specifically Rhino and Raven at Backlash is one of my favorite hardcore title matches ever. So I agree. I think he should have at least been quarterfinals, if not semifinals, especially looking at this list. A lot of hardcore champions weren't really notable.
So I was never really a big Rhino guy. I wasn't a big ECW fan. Rhino kind of came in after me, a lot of that stuff. So I have no attachment to Rhino. To me, Rhino's always been sort of just like one of those dudes that's hanging around. I don't even know if I would have ever put like a mid-card title on him, to be honest.
Well, you're not a Rhino guy because you're an Elephant guy.
Nah, Barry's an Elephant guy.
But are you not a fan of Barry?
Yeah, fuck Barry.
No. Well, then...
The Mankind one versus Spike Dudley is interesting to me just because I think the only reason why Mankind gets a huge, or Mick Foley or whatever you want to call him, the multiple personalities, the reason why he gets such an affinity with the Hardcore Championship is only because he was the first one. He didn't actually ever do anything with the Hardcore Championship.
Yeah, he just pretty much introduced it, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go into like really deep technicalities, he's also the final Hardcore Champion because they did that segment with Edge and Mick Foley taking the Hardcore Championship and making themselves co-champions.
I like that. While. That was nice.
But essentially he just introduced the title, which was a smashed up version of the Winged Eagle title with the word hardcore strapped across it.
How weird is that this hardcore title is born out of one of the best championship belt designs ever?
It's just such a strange concept in general, the idea that the championship is another championship but broken, as opposed to being literally any design other than that.
Well, I think it fit the storyline because essentially it was just Vince McMahon's way of manipulating Foley to say, oh, we'll give him a belt, and it's just like they just found it in the trash somewhere and just decided to tape it back together and put a word hardcore on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like for a quick storyline, that makes sense. But you would have thought that at some point when they started actually having this be like, okay, this one's good. Like British Bulldog has the title, and this person's got the title. Then it would have been like, all right, let's actually commission a belt and be like, we're gonna put more emphasis on this and make it.
We would have thought in the 8 years they had available, they would have changed the spinner belt to something that was befitting someone other than John Cena, and also a John Cena that was only really around for 2005 and 2006 and was pretty much dead by that point.
Yeah.
At least that you can argue that the toy sales were a part of that. I don't really know how many people were buying the hardcore title.
And lots
Probably
of kids,
just as
I'm sure.
Yeah, I imagine quite a few people would have liked this, especially if it was going to be like it was around during the heyday of backyard wrestling.
Oh, couldn't you just buy a used WWF championship and break it?
Yeah, but you can't justify hitting your friend with some furniture when it's just a foam WWF championship. Now you got to be hardcore.
Let's see what else we got here. We got Goldust beats Gerald Briscoe. Bradshaw beats British Bulldog. Hardcore Holly loses to Jeff Hardy. Now, I think that this one would have been at least round 2, round 3 or so. I think Hardcore Holly got taken out a little early. But then again, he's up against Jeff Hardy, so it's like, if he would have been up against...
Spike Dudley, he would have won.
Yeah. So I was disappointed in that.
I don't really remember. I mean, I know obviously his name's Hardcore Holly. I don't really remember anything that he ever did with the Hardcore Championship. Admittedly, I wasn't watching live at the time because I didn't start watching until pretty much the Hardcore title was defunct. But going back, I can't ever recall. Like, if you were to ask me at what point he was ever Hardcore Champion, I know that he won it at WrestleMania 16 or WrestleMania 2000, and he wasn't meant to win it at WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, that's my go-to memory too.
Yeah.
My go-to memory when you say Hardcore Holly is, how do you like me now? Because for whatever reason they added that to his generic theme song.
I don't know, ever since I've started doing this Smack Talk podcast, when I think of Hardcore Holly, I just think, give me the belt. Just give me all the belts. I should just beat everybody. I just beat everyone, and then you give me the belt.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what he did at WrestleMania 2000.
I still like, I'm going to break your ass in half, you little shithead. Let's see. Al Snow beats Road Dogg. Mike Awesome beats Sean Stasiak. Crash Holly beats Shane McMahon. Big Boss Man beats Maven. Test beats Just Incredible. Bubba Ray Dudley beats Billy Gunn. Taz beats Stevie Richards, which I just realized there's a typo in there. It just says Steve Richards. Okay, that's weird.
Well, he is Steve.
Steven with a PH, maybe.
Steve Richards, he was the last guy that was kind of like the multiple title holder in 2002, really. He was the guy that would lose the title on basically every show and then win it back by the end of the show.
Yeah, doing a lot of those at house shows.
Big Show beat William Regal. Undertaker beat Steve Blackman, and Tommy Dreamer narrowly beat Kane.
You just said that. I would have liked to have seen Undertaker and Steve Blackman for real. Just because you imagine that both of those guys take themselves so seriously that it would have been fun to watch that in a match.
I would disagree with the result of that one, of The Undertaker beating Steve Blackman. I think Blackman was a better hardcore champion. I think, it's the idea that Undertaker, he only held it once, and that was at the peak of his heel, badass, biker Undertaker character. And that's the one that's most fondly remembered, like version of that gimmick anyway. But Blackman actually defended the title quite frequently, and he had that match with Shane McMahon at SummerSlam where Shane falls off that huge pit of the staging, goes about 30 feet to the ground.
He pulls a Shane McMahon.
Yeah, and Blackman obviously is associated for using weapons quite often in his matches, with using the kendo sticks and the I can't remember what those. They're not nunchucks, but those half kendo stick things that you grip hold of.
The Tonfas?
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Boy. Why do you know that?
Nightwing.
He's a big fan, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
yeah, I
no,
find
technically they're Eskrima sticks or Charisma sticks. I don't remember exactly for sure which one of those, but Tonfa is another name for some of those kind of things.
I
There you
think
go.
it
You
was
learn something new every day.
it's one of those instances where Undertaker definitely wasn't a bad hardcore champion, but I think that his legacy and his name carried him a bit further on this one.
Not to spoil it, but he made it to the final. So
That's kind of spoiling it.
that doesn't say who won.
What do you? No, you didn't. You just said he was in the final, so that's like,
Yeah, but now you know that
let's
he
not talk about all of his other
everything
stuff.
else.
He might have won. He might not have. I don't know. We'll
Hmm.
see. Because Raven lost just by 1 vote to Rob Van Dam in round 2. Then we had a total blowout. Mankind beating Goldust, 34-1, 97.1% of the vote, which to me is just like, that's crazy again. Jeff Hardy beats Bradshaw. Al Snow beats Mike Awesome. Crash Holly beats Big Boss Man. Bubba Ray Dudley beats Test. Big Show beats Taz. And The Undertaker beats Tommy Dreamer. Anything stand out to you guys on that?
Nothing super surprising out of any of these ones. Like I think for the most part they picked the right one. The only one that you could probably have a certain amount of contention with is whether you get rid of Raven this early. But even though he held the title for a lot of times and he was involved in a lot of decent hardcore matches and moments, I think RVD's reign is just, like, as a champion, it's just a better reign than Raven's combined titles were.
Is it more quality or quantity?
For me, it's always quality over quantity, but you know.
Kind of depends. I can see arguments for both. To me,
Yeah, it depends what
since
you're looking for.
I didn't see like all the Raven title reigns and stuff, so that was another one where I was just like, I'm not gonna vote because why would I be throwing my vote towards anybody if I don't have any kind of like real judgment to be able to base it off of? Rob Van Dam struggles again in round 3, but narrowly by 2 votes, beats Mankind. So
Yeah,
like,
that one's more bizarre.
You know, it's kind of like RVD struggling but making it through. Jeff Hardy beats Al Snow. Bubba Ray Dudley beats Crash Holly. Now that one I didn't see coming. I thought that Crash would have won that.
Bubba Ray was a good hardcore champion, and he did hold it for that. I mean, that was basically his shtick during that brief period that he was separated from Devon Dudley. Maybe it's just the fact that he's more like in the mind of people nowadays because he's still prominent in the wrestling world. But yeah, it should have been Crash Holly to win that one.
And then The Undertaker beats Big Show.
Which...
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's just surprising the Big Show is this far into the entire thing, but I guess it's just a result of the seeding.
Oh yeah, he did not need to go this far. Bubba was a good champion, kind of like the last big babyface champion for the championship's lifespan, but I don't know. Crash Holly could have made it to the semifinals. I think Foley could have made it to the semifinals. But ultimately, like I said in the beginning, Van Dam is my favorite. So as long as he gets all the way through, I'm fine with this tournament so far.
Yeah, before we go through round 4, let me quickly toss out a plug. There is the merchandise shops on TeePublic and Redbubble for Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and A Mango Tees. Go ahead and pick up some t-shirts or any other kind of merchandise designs that you are interested in on any of the different products that we have available there. And that'd be greatly appreciated. Quick plug. What are you about to say, Callum?
I was just basically going to say that I still don't see why Foley's getting this far into the thing. He didn't do anything with that championship.
But
the only
he
thing
is hardcore.
Yeah, the only thing is that he was the first person to hold that championship. He was also the first person to lose that championship at the first time of asking to Big Boss Man. So it's just a nostalgia pop, but that is what Foley is good for.
Right here in the 2019 Champsgiving tournament.
Yeah.
So Rob had been rooting for Rob Van Dam, and he almost got knocked out here because RVD versus Jeff Hardy in round 4 for the entire day that I had planned on shutting the poll off just was a perpetual tie. It was 50-50, deadlocked. One vote would go one way, and then the next time I'd check it, it would go the other way for the entire time. So I ended up having to keep it an extra day, and that kind of threw something off a little bit, but not too much. It wasn't like, we got a whole extra week worth of this or something. But after I kept it up for another 11 hours or so, that had reached a point where Rob Van Dam narrowly beat out Jeff Hardy and ended up moving on to the final.
By how many votes?
It was only 3 votes.
All right. Good for everybody.
Then again, we're only dealing with 45 votes here, so it's not like it's, 3 votes out of 7,000 or something like that. And of course, Undertaker beats Bubba Ray Dudley, because I mentioned before that Undertaker was in the final. So that had set up RVD versus Undertaker. One of those two is who you picked as the best hardcore champion of all time. Again, I would have said Crash Holly might have been somebody that I would have gone with. But without really having the judgment for most of these people, I was just like, yeah, okay, this kind of makes sense to me. RVD's hardcore guy, Undertaker had that title reign and whatever, and, it wasn't the weirdest thing in the world for me to see out of the list of options. If it would have been like...
It wasn't like Daniel Bryan beats Hulk Hogan in the...
Yeah, that one's still
Greatest World
confusing.
Championship.
Yeah, that was still odd. But, RVD, Undertaker comes down to one of them won by 65.9% of the votes. Got an idea who won without looking?
It's got to be RVD. Yeah, even though Undertaker is Undertaker, I'm almost confident that RVD is more synonymous with hardcore, so people did the right thing and voted for RVD.
Well, I've already looked, so it's not going to be able to.
Well, all right then. Am I wrong or am I right?
RVD won.
All right.
So, yeah, RVD is who you crowned as the best hardcore champion in WWE history. I still don't know if that's quite a matter of people saying that he's the best hardcore champion or that he's their favorite hardcore wrestler. And
no, I think if it was that, Foley would have been in the finals.
Maybe. Maybe that's the difference maker between some of the people voting that way and some of the people not voting that way. Maybe that's the difference of those couple little votes there, because he almost lost to Jeff Hardy, he almost lost to Mankind, and he almost lost to Raven. Which is interesting, because that means that the person who won struggled more than the person who didn't win. Undertaker beat out these people that he beat them by a wider margin over those round 2, 3, and 4.
I mean, in fairness, RVD had a much tougher run to the final than he had to face Rhino, who was a good hardcore champion. He had to face Raven, who's the guy who's held it more times than the other person. Then he had to face Foley, who's obviously popular and the first hardcore champion. Then Jeff Hardy, who's consistently popular and was also a good hardcore champion as well. Whereas Undertaker kind of just had to beat people that were there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, seeding of the bracket turns out really well for some people sometimes. So I kind of don't know where to go from here. I don't know if it's really worth doing another Champsgiving tournament if that's the way that things are kind of playing out, to be perfectly honest. And if so, I don't even know what titles I would try to build it around, because I got a feeling if we go with the best women's champion, then people are just going to vote Becky Lynch no matter what. Or if
Let's
do
best NXT champion. Can we do that yet? There are enough people?
That's another thing that's kind of strange too, is it's hard to do the best champions when they're still adding more champions, which is kind of strange because, that rules out women's titles, that rules out the world titles, we already did that, but that rules out the Intercontinental, the United States, the tag titles, the Cruiserweight title, which kind of makes it difficult, because then at that point, what titles do you do? The best ever European champion?
Yeah, you don't have to twist my arm, Tony. I know how much you love the European title. I think we should do
best looking
European
title.
champion.
Well, what other defunct titles are there really? That's just that, right? I mean, I don't think that anybody's really going to care about the best ever Intercontinental Tag Team Champions or something like that, where you really have no options, and it's, you know,
We could
Yeah,
do the
most
best WCW champion. Like we can just jump to another promotion
I mean, we
here.
could always do that. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah. WCW, obviously there's the ECW Championship, and that can count both like old
We
ECW
will
and
not.
WWE ECW.
I refuse to count WWE ECW.
Why? Ezekiel Jackson deserves a shot at winning this thing.
Well, then we can do best Intercontinental champion and put him up against Ahmed Johnson, and whoever wins, you know what? That should be the final of the best Intercontinental champion.
I like Zeke better. But there's a couple other ways that we can maybe do something around this whole thing. I'm not quite giving up on the idea of Champsgiving being a tournament in the fall, just a matter of trying to figure out the best way to do it. One of them that had been suggested before was making it based off of title belt designs. And one of the issues of that caused me to not do that this year, outside of the fact that I wanted to see what would happen for the whole sticking around the championship reign kind of thing, is that it's difficult to narrow it down to what belts do you want to have on there and get the proper pictures for each one and stuff, because it would have to be something along the lines of what's the best design for the blank championship. Couldn't just be what's the best championship design period, because then you're getting into there's 3 different Intercontinental title designs. Then do you count the idea that Ultimate Warrior had the different colored straps? Then you go with, okay, then there's the world titles, there's the Winged Eagle, there's the Broken Skull title, there's the whatever. If you include every championship that's been in even just WWE, you're looking at hundreds of designs, and that I can't do a tournament that's going to last for an entire year. Not anymore.
Well, what was this? 32?
Yeah, so I usually try to go with 32.
I really feel like if you do best WWE championship designs, and then you break it down into like, okay, overall best. Let's say the world title wins the overall tournament, best looking belts, and then you go, okay, what's the best looking world title? You have like 20 to choose from. You know.
Well, we could always do shorter tournaments too. Like if there is enough for 16, then we could do a 16 tournament. If there's only 8, we could do an 8 one. Technically speaking, if there's 4, we could do 4. Doesn't have to be a long tournament. It's just the idea that it's happening around Thanksgiving and stuff, and it's something extra to do.
But
And
is this tournament really relevant now that the Fiend has his own custom belt?
Oh no.
Like,
That's
surely
surely
that's already spoiled the result. So feels like we can't really go ahead with that one now.
So do I like that better than the European? But that's kind of, I don't know. There's lots of intricacies that go along with that. It's a matter of picking a championship to go with, trying to find all the right pictures for it, trying to distinguish whether or not we should bother with like the different strap colors, because yeah, like technically speaking, the Intercontinental Championship with the white strap is different than the Intercontinental Championship with the black strap, even though it's predominantly the same title. Now, I wouldn't bother doing anything where it's like, okay, the United States Championship that had the WWE scratch logo versus the United States title with the modern WWE logo, they're exactly the same title. It's just that change. I don't think anybody's going to go, that's a big difference, and but maybe something like that. I don't know. I definitely would not do best overall title design for every championship that's been in WWE, because there's just too many options. But maybe
you
something
could do,
like the women's titles or something, because you got the Raw women's title, the SmackDown women's title, the Divas Championship, the women's championship that have been at the same time, the Moolah one. Like you could maybe do something like that.
or maybe instead of going based on category or different titles, you go by time period instead. That was the best looking title design of 2010s or something like that.
Yeah, like what was the best title design of the 90s? And then you narrow it down to like WWE had 6 or 7. Then you can get the other promotions in there. And then I think you might actually have a nice tournament.
Yeah, that could be a thing too. That depends on getting all the details hammered out. Another thing is, because that's what's hard about that is, how do you analyze it really for the most part? Like, it's essentially just which one do you think is better looking. There's no real like debate about okay, well, Mankind was the hardcore champion for this thing, and he didn't defend the title, and he,
The debate is your opinion is stupid. This belt looks better, and then
for
we
the
get
most
into it.
part, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it would be. So, I mean, we don't, for the Champsgiving tournament, there isn't a whole lot of material to be able to break down for like a weekly discussion, the way that we normally do with like the Sexy Superstars tournament, which is more fun, where it's just sort of like, well, I like this person's face better, and this person's got a better butt, and whatever that kind of thing is. Whereas with the title belts, if we were to do that, I think it would be a lot of the same, where we're sort of just like I don't like, for instance, on the European title, which I rag on a lot, I don't like having the flags, which sounds kind of crazy because I always say that I think that there should be like the international championship and you should have the person's flags on there as part of the side plates and stuff. But like, I don't like that. And like, for instance, the WWE championship that followed the Winged Eagle one, I don't like how round it is. But at that point, really, then am I just saying, it's round, I don't like round? Somebody else goes, well, I do. And you go, all right, well, let's move on. Like there's really not a whole lot to that.
It'll be an interesting experiment to see who likes round more. I think there's something there.
There's something there for sure. It's definitely a possibility.
I know who likes round. Barry's pretty round.
Yeah.
Barry.
Another way to possibly do this is to have a discussion about oddball championships. Like, which championship concept do you like better? We've got the 24/7 title, we got the hardcore title, the cruiserweight title, the mid-card titles, the world titles, the women's title, the TV title, the tag titles, and kind of be like, which championship stuff do you like better? Is it more interesting to have the hardcore championship, or is it more interesting to have the cruiserweight championship? Like, we could do something like that if we have enough variety between those. Again, that's another thing that's like, lump in some other promotions because other people have had different types of titles, like the Grand Championship and Impact, or the Never Open Weight Championship, whatever different things are going on with weight classifications, or trios titles. Do you like that better than the tag titles normally, where you could do the Freebird rule, or like, there's a little bit of variety to that. That might be a possibility in the future.
I'd kind of want to focus it more, if we were to do that type of tournament, we'd focus more on like titles that have a definitive gimmick attached to them.
More so than like the world titles, yeah.
Yeah, because there's certain titles, especially in WWE nowadays, where what really differentiates the Intercontinental title from the world title, other than the fact that one of them is called a world title.
Right. Yeah,
that'd be held by different people.
If we had enough options of some different varieties of gimmicks, then the women's title, for instance, is like, well, it's just the same as the world title for the men. It's just for the women. So what's the big deal on that one?
Whereas the cruiserweight title has a definitive weight limit to it. The 24/7 one has the gimmick where obviously you can pin someone at any point in time. You have the hardcore title, which obviously has the 24/7 gimmick, but the more thing that it's, I wouldn't say known for, but the thing that's supposed to separate is the fact that it's only should be defending in hardcore matches.
Right.
And the Grand Championship has the rounds associated with it. So there are plenty of ones. I mean, I don't know whether you class the $1 Million Championship in that kind of category, because there isn't really a gimmick.
I probably would.
I mean, it's a gimmicky title, but it doesn't actually have a gimmick associated with it.
I think I'd probably classify that as being like a vanity title or something, where it's like people defended it, but they didn't really defend it. You know what I mean? Like Virgil won the title, but it's like he wasn't sitting there going on house shows and defending that as a regular title, and then it continues going on. It pretty much is just like DiBiase's just like, I got the title back, ha ha ha, like Maybe the Yapapai strap belt. Put that in there.
Was the Yapapai strap belt a thing?
Kind of. I mean, the weight belt. Wasn't it?
That's fair. I don't know if that was a belt, but it is a belt.
Then we just have like normal belt. Another thing that we could do, and I think that I'm actually leaning more towards this, is to do either Triple Crown or Grand Slam champion. Because that does sort of limit it, I mean, there's always a possibility that somebody else becomes a champion that's like Triple Crown or Grand Slam during that time frame, but usually that doesn't happen all that often. We do get every once in a while. It's kind of strange. If you look at like the way that that's happened, there tends to be this like gap of nobody doing it, and then there'll be like 3 in the span of like a month or something, where like Rey Mysterio or Jeff Hardy or whoever it is will be like, okay, they won a title, then this person won a title, and that person won a title. And even though one of them was a tag and one of them was like a world and one of them was an intercontinental, all 3 in the span of that summer became Triple Crown champions or something like that. That happens once in a while.
Well, it coincides with the type of at the moment when they decide, okay, this person who's been in the mid card basically their entire time, will give them a run with the main title, and they usually do that in bunches. Like the time when they had like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit hold the title at the same time, and then they would trade titles around between people like a Jeff Hardy or what at the time at least, a CM Punk, who wasn't seen as to be like a permanent main event fixture, and they would just collect them all at the same time. I mean, it's interesting because I think a Triple Crown or a Grand Slam tournament is interesting because it rules out some pretty sizable names pretty early. Like Hogan can't be in it because he never won a mid-card title. Can't put Undertaker in it, he never won a mid-card title.
Yeah, like technically speaking, at least right now, it could change by the time another Champsgiving tournament happens, but if we were to do the Triple Crown, for instance, we would only have Pedro Morales, Bret Hart, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, Kane, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Ric Flair, Edge, RVD, Booker T, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, CM Punk, JBL, Rey Mysterio, Dolph Ziggler, Christian, Big Show. Did I already mention him? Is he twice on this list? Maybe. The Miz, Daniel Bryan, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston. So that seems like that's like a lot, but I mean, relatively speaking, it's not a whole lot of people. And there's, like you said, lots of people missing off that list. That's kind of interesting because you would think that certain people would have won that, like Undertaker and Hulk Hogan and
Cena.
Yeah, Cena never won a mid-card title, so it's
That's
like...
not true at all.
He won the US title. It depends on how loose you're trying to be with the Triple Crown. Like, I always associate the Triple Crown with the World, the Intercontinental, and the Tag title. But there are so many different variations of it. Yeah. There's so many different variations of it. So, and realistically, there's no differentiation between the Intercontinental and the US title in terms of their worth in WWE.
And then that would be the type of thing, too, that you start getting into the whole, like, well, do you count whether or not the United States title should count if you make your own list out of that, you know, like you.
Well, they class that as part of the modern Grand Slam, don't they? Because they replaced the European Championship with the United States Championship.
The Grand Slam champions, I don't know how they. Let me double check about how they classify that. Right now, they have the option of a primary title, which is either. They don't have the Universal in there. Oh, no, they do. Okay. So the current incarnation of it is the WWE title or the Universal, the Raw or SmackDown tag titles, and the Intercontinental and United States. So that's how you have to do it.
Yeah, so Cena still wouldn't fit in that one.
Yeah, if we would do that, we would only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people for the modern Grand Slam champions. Which again, I mean, we could do a tournament based off of 14 people. Like, it doesn't have to be 32. And
maybe by this time next year, there'll be 2 more people and make it easier.
Yeah, they could always do that because there's a couple of people that are just a little bit off, I'm pretty sure. Of course, the list doesn't quite say it right now, but yeah, that's a way to get around some of that stuff. And I think that there's options, you know, and we could always do, of course, like even with talking about the women's Triple Crown and all that other kind of stuff, like there's no options for that. We can't do that, but maybe we could do something else. Like, you know, that'd be kind of funny that if we did do like, all right, we're going to have a tournament. The women's Triple Crown winners in WWE, it's Bayley and Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, well, then you're just getting into sexy superstars tournament territory where Alexa wins no matter what. Now, I would argue you put Alexa into put Alexa and Bailey into the fold of the men, and Alexa still wins because she's Alexa Bliss.
That depends. Is there the option for having like best face?
Oh yeah.
I mean, Bailey has the advantage of the fact that she's not just a Triple Crown champion. She would be if you want to class it as a Grand Slam champion.
Yeah, she is currently the only Grand Slam champion in WWE for the women, because she's the only one that's actually won the tag titles. If Charlotte Flair wins the tag titles at any point, then she becomes another one.
So that'd be the extra
that's
two.
keeping her from the Triple Crown too. That's the only reason why she's not a Triple Crown winner.
So that'd be the extra two if we needed it we have to add them to the men's one.
Yeah, so I mean, we could play around with that. We could play around with the idea of doing something like, based off of years. Shit, we could even do something where it's like, since it's towards the end of the year, we could do a tournament of who's been the best champion this year and have the actual people in the year of everybody in WWE who's been a champion. Or, there's lots of variety for it, but I do like the idea of having something based off of champions for the Champsgiving tournament. Otherwise, why are we calling it Champsgiving,
Yeah.
So I'm curious what the other ideas are that are out there, and if you have any, drop a comment below. And if you want to see us do more of these types of things and play around with some different gimmicks, or maybe you really like the Champsgiving tournament as who's the best champion, and if we don't do it like that anymore, you want to see us bring it back in some other fashion, like a top rope list or something, then hit up the Patreon, because that is a way for you to pick your poison if you get to that tier, and you can request a special feature of some kind. So that's a way to kind of make sure that we do some of the content that's like that. But another way to take advantage of that, if you don't have the spare change to be able to donate towards that tier, is to donate towards the Darkcast tier, which is going to be the one where just do some extra stuff every once in a while. It's going to be Patreon exclusive, and as soon as I get the ball rolling on that, I'll let everybody know about that. But I'm hoping to at least maybe do something like that for December. No idea what, no idea when, all the other kind of details that go along with that. But even if it's just $1 a month can go a long way, especially if lots and lots of people do it. So consider donating to the Patreon for that. Do the same thing for the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, because if you want me to do more Fanboys Anonymous content, that's the best way to motivate me to be able to actually find the time to do it. So Fanboys is my site for movie reviews and stuff like that. If you don't know what it is, go ahead and check that out. And follow all the accounts that are on there and stuff. As far as Champsgiving 2019 goes, I don't really know if I have anything else to break down. Anything else hardcore title related? Any like memories or something you guys want to pinpoint, or anything?
Well, I think we should go around table and say what is our favorite hardcore championship match. What do you think?
I like that clusterfuck that Hardcore Holly wins. I think that is kind of indicative of just like the silliness of the whole thing. I'm sure that there's better matches, but to me that's fun,
I like two come to mind: RVD and Jericho at Unforgiven 01, and also in 2001, Kane, Big Show, and Raven at WrestleMania 17. And I think I'd have to go with that because it's fun and it features big names, and it's probably the most relevant thing the hardcore title ever did at a WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'd probably have to put that triple threat as my choice as well. I just think it's just a lot of fun, but it's not overdone like a lot of other hardcore matches where there's just too many working parts going on, or there's too many people just standing around when there's a pin going on, just pretending like they can't see the pin taking place or something to that effect. So, I remember, I think there's one spot in that match that Tony's talking about where one of the wrestlers actually just stomps on someone while they're doing the pin to try and break it up, but the referee just keeps counting anyway because nobody has any idea what's going on. So yeah, I that triple threat match, I love the some of the Rhino matches, like the Rhino match against I think there was a triple threat match between Rhino, Big Show, and Raven. It was Rhino, Big Show, and someone, I think. I think it was Judgment Day, was pretty good I like when Rhino was holding the belt for the short period that he was. He had quite a few decent matches.
Rhino deserved more, I think. It's fair to say. My last thing I would want to note is the finals of this tournament were RVD and The Undertaker, and we will be covering that exact match that occurred at Vengeance 2001 on the final episode of 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, right, Cal?
Yeah, it's quite fitting that that's the final when we talk about like the final 2001 show of the year. Yeah, so that's the Hardcore Championship match. We won't spoil who wins that one in case you don't know. Won't pull a Tony and just say if one of them's definitely in it. One of them will definitely win the Hardcore Championship in that match.
That is
I
correct.
don't know. It could be Goldust.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's one of I guess it's probably one of the 3 big matches on the show. Well, 4 big matches if you technically count the fact that we're going to be talking about Jericho versus The Rock for the World Championship, Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin for the WWF Championship, and then the winners of those 2 matches meet to crown the first ever undisputed champion. And if you've never heard the person who did win that match talk about it, because he basically mentions it. Yeah, you're not a wrestling fan. Because he's basically mentioned it in every single promo that he's ever cut since. But it's if you haven't, then it'll be a nice surprise for you.
And I think my favorite thing we're going to be covering in 2001 WWE is the entire pay-per-view is built around a man who is not cleared to return at the pay-per-view, which is Triple H.
Yeah, the entire promotional material for that entire
everything is a sledgehammer.
was predicated with the idea that, wow, Triple H make his big return. Oh no, we'll wait until the Raw afterwards, or a couple of weeks afterwards. So that's a lot to look forward to. Don't want to turn this into a mini 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, but I guess it's just coincidence because a lot of the stuff has been quite coincidental with 2001 this year that we end this hardcore tournament with the final hardcore championship match we're going to review in 2001.
Which kind of makes me nervous because if you can kind of give us an idea of how TLC is going to go.
I imagine that if the Undertaker's involved, then maybe he'll throw someone off the stage. Like
I'm okay with that.
I'm pretty sure that's one of the spots. In terms of how TLC is supposed to go, well, I think it'll end with a result which people won't quite believe just happened and will end up being more disappointing as time goes on. And Triple H will win the belt at WrestleMania. And Triple H will win the belt at WrestleMania.
King Corbin will beat Bray Wyatt. I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes to that, though. And obviously, next week we will be breaking down our predictions and then the post show for TLC because TLC's coming right up. We have no matches on the card. We have no graphics on the website. We have no information about what's going to go down. But we might get some of that information later on this week with SmackDown and be friggin' better when it comes to Raw next week because if not, they are really playing it close to the chest.
Stay tuned to the bump, guys.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I don't know if I really want to bother with the bump, but sometimes they announce things on there. So maybe they'll just be like, all right, well, TLC's coming up in 3 days and, we got to figure that out. So really quickly, here's the card. It's this one, this one, this one, and this one. Oh my God, what's Dan Vollmeyer have to say about this? It's just one of those kind of setups. But we'll see. We'll break it down the way that we always do it. We'll obviously do the hot tags next week as well because that's a weekly thing. And then we'll roll on and we'll do the mailbag after that. And then we'll be doing the Smark Out Moment End of the Year Awards. It's coming up that quick, it seems. Beginning of the year. It just seems like it was yesterday for me. And we're already starting a new year pretty soon. So that's going to be the next couple of things that are going to be coming your way. Send in Send in those mailbag questions if you have not already. I know I got one of them earlier today that I got a backlog. And I'll do the same with any of the other ones that you submit in advance. And follow all the stuff that we've got. Follow Smark Out Moment at Smark Out Moment on Facebook and Twitter. That's subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow all the stuff on the audio only platforms, the merchandise stuff, the Patreon, the fanboy stuff, me, A Mango Tree, Tony Mango, blah 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 blah. Follow these guys as well. Rob?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. Check out WrestleZone.com and check out Fightful.com. Callum?
Callum?
I've already plugged 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, but do check out the December edition when it comes out, as well as watching or listening back to all the previous editions we've done. You can check out all the weekly articles on smarkoutmoment.com, including the power rankings and the triple threat, which I contribute to this week. And follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14.
Check out my other stuff that I got on Bleacher Report, New Wrestling News, and elsewhere. And we will see you next time, everybody. Thanks for listening to this. For now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.